Happy New Year.
Hello, Chris. Are you good? Hang on. I've got a thing across your face. It says this meeting is being recorded. I better press got it. That removes the thing from across your face.
Is that when I've got to start again? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Christopher. It's good to see you. I understand your good lady is poorly, so I hope she gets better soon.
Yeah, and, so do I.
And yeah, because I guess you're doing all the cooking and the cleaning and the washing, are you, Christy? That's the problem.
Well, that's no different to normal, is it?
Oh, that's okay. That's okay then. As long as did she watch Rev Chat to hear this statement?
No.
I could suggest for this one that she does then. I'll write to her.
Well, we got a guest virtual appearance.
Yeah, could do.
From
Well,
Mrs.
it's good to see you. Did you have a good Christmas as well, Chris?
Yeah, I did, of course, but Julia still had the cold back then as well, and it just seemed really short. And of course, we've come back in the new year, and we're immediately back into. I've got a few days left to finish planning Easter and Lent.
I know. Well, I was thinking early this morning when I was taking the dog out that I need to write the articles for the team news this week before I start my holiday, and that includes saying something about Lent courses, etc., etc. And whilst I don't put 2 months of rotas into the magazine like you have to do, it certainly includes the start of Lent. Dear viewer, Easter's very early this year. If you haven't cottoned on, Easter Day itself is on the 30th of March. That's 2 or even 3 weeks almost earlier than the last couple of years, which means that Lent starts very early in the middle of February.
In fact, on Valentine's Day.
On Valentine's Day, yeah, absolutely, on Valentine's Day. So for our magazine articles for the next month, we've got to start writing about Lent courses just to confuse matters even worse. And we haven't even got to Epiphany yet.
No, but at least we are planning Lent after Christmas.
We are. There was a lovely joke or cartoon many years ago in the Church Times. Those the Gargoyles cartoons that they have. And it showed you a vicar with a Christmas paper hat on, slumped over his desk, half asleep. And it said, it was tradition for Gerald after Christmas Day dinner to write his Easter sermon. And I always think of that because on a year like this year, where it does creep up if we're not careful very quickly, we have to get stuck in. So, yes, so you've got a lot of work to do. I've got a lot of work to do. Certainly, I've got to complete the article I've started to write for the next month's magazine. But generally, I think apart from the weather, which has been pretty horrific with all the rain we've had around here, it's okay. Now, our lady from upstate New York, Pat, Chris.
Hello, Pat.
Is actually in England.
Oh.
And I had conversation over email with her just before Christmas because she told me she was coming over. And I said, would she be in the area? Because she comes to visit friends in Stoke Abbott. She had a long family history of Stoke Abbott from centuries ago. And she's coming over later this week. So I'm hoping to bump into her if she comes, if she's able to make it. Yeah, so we're not being watched in upstate New York this week. We're actually being watched by Pat from upstate New York, who hopefully will be in Sussex or even Dorset, who knows.
Well, next week we'll be back to the international flavour for Ask as well, because our friends Graham and Gillian are going off to Tenerife this weekend. So they'll be watching from Tenerife.
Oh, good on them. So there we are. We still keep the international jet-setting life going, which is good. Now, Debs isn't with us because Debs has got a period of extended leave. And so we wish her well and look forward to seeing her back in a month's time. And Joe's no doubt busy preparing exam questions or something for her students because she's back at
probably ready for the end of year, isn't it? Probably for them. You know, we're talking about planning Easter. They're probably talking about the end of summer.
Yeah, starting in new. Yeah, well, I know that she's back at work in college yesterday and today, so that'll be that'll be good. So she's not here. So, dear viewer, you've got to put up with Christopher and me, and
we're still here.
Yeah, we're still, and we're going to look at the Epiphany story, I think, aren't we, Chris?
We are. Shall we have our pause and move on to
Go
it?
a pause, and then I'll read, shall I? So a reading from the second chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, chapter verses 1 to 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it had been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road.
I often think this is quite an important reading at the moment with all these troubles around.
I'm
Purely
pleased you
because
do.
it's talking about God speaking to people from different lands. And, you know, it's a nice lesson to all of us that God isn't just for our people, as in middle-aged white men with greying beards, but for other people as well, of all different colours of skin, because these people were from a different land, and it wasn't, oh, they're from a different land, baby Jesus being born is not relevant to you because you're not good enough. It was actually, you're from a different land, and God's come here for you as well.
Absolutely.
Been a lot of my Christmas message, that is the difference between the wise men and the shepherds. The shepherds being the poor and the local, and often the criminals, because they were often the highwaymen, and also the wealthy and the foreigner. So God, in both, we have God for everybody.
Yeah, and certainly your address on that theme has been received well. Certainly in your parishes, and in the pub in Ask as well. I understand.
Pub in Powerstock.
Powerstock, sorry, in Powerstock. I always get Ask as well and Powerstock mixed up. Yeah, shouldn't do it. That's spelled differently, so I shouldn't get it mixed up.
Well, they are. That's it. Although I do believe the pub in Powerstock's now shut for a month, but that's another story.
There we are.
Just for winter.
But no, I mean, the story always fascinates me because we've been led to believe, certainly from childhood, that there were these three men, and it was only men who turned up to see Jesus, and they were wise. Were they kings? Were they magi? Were they but there were three men. Well, when you think about it, that's rather silly, isn't it? Because you wouldn't have found three people carrying such expensive gifts on their own through some of the most troubled land in the world, as you highlighted, Chris. So it always makes me smile because they'd have been in some kind of train with other people, men, women, children. I would have thought all together. They may have just made the last few yards of journey to the crib. But yeah, I can't believe they went on their own. And we don't know that women weren't there. It just doesn't say they were. It just said these three chaps kind of turned up.
Well, also, if these three chaps were wealthy enough to have camels and travel carrying gold, they need security guards.
They would.
They're probably the sort of people who didn't cook for themselves.
Exactly. Well, I'm not getting into that because I got into enough trouble myself when I suggested such a thing just before Christmas.
Okay, well, we won't go there then. But like you say, it would have been a big group of people.
A big group of people.
Yeah, we don't know. I was quite chuffed at all my school assemblies before Christmas. As I frequently do, I said, "So how many wise men were there?"
Yeah.
And everybody but the reception class, for whom it was my the first set of assemblies with me, said, "We don't know. It was probably between 2 and 8." Because we've had one of your Christmas assemblies before on the wise men.
Yeah, well, see, at least they were listening, weren't they?
And not only listened, they remembered from a year before.
You see, I find the whole of that Christmas story interesting, and earlier in the week, I was, just before the weekend, actually, between Christmas and last weekend, I was flicking through the various things and came across the sermon given by Kenneth Padley, who's the canon treasurer at Salisbury Cathedral, whose sermons are always, I find them fascinating. He's got such an historical ability to get the story over, and he was tackling, or he was disabusing the story as Joe has often done. He'd been really pleased to have listened, because he said, there's no mention of donkey anywhere in the story, but how on earth did they get there otherwise? Mary couldn't have walked that distance on that kind of road in the condition she was in. She must have been on something, but it doesn't mention going on a donkey. But he also said about because he started off by saying the only role he ever got in a Christmas nativity once was that he made it to innkeeper. And of course, there is no mention of inns anywhere in the story. And he used the two Greek words about the place where Jesus was born. And the one word in Greek suggested it was a kind of hostelry on a road, a main road between two major towns where people could stop to rest. Hence the story of the Good Samaritan. He was taken to an inn. But he never mentions it, certainly in the story, because there wouldn't have been an inn in Bethlehem in that way. But he also says that the second word resorts to just an ordinary house where people took anybody in who knocked on the door, and you slept with the rest of the family, because they've all slept in one room on a mezzanine type floor somewhere. And so Mary, most likely when the time for the birth came, wandered away and kind of went to what potentially was a cave or something at the back of the house. It was very interesting the way he brought it all together, and this story will kind of fit into that as well. We don't know. We've got no evidence other than these words.
I read a commentary this Christmas that actually suggested that this manger might have been one of the sheds owned by the shepherds, and that's how the shepherds actually knew to find it.
Yeah, I find it all very interesting because we don't know. We take the words we see for granted. I mean, I think there's no doubt that we know the birth of Jesus happened. We know that shepherds visited, and we know that these wise men, kings, whatever they were, all turned up at some point as part of a story. But exactly how it happened is perhaps to our imagination to a degree. Perhaps to our
a good point of the actually the four Gospels is they don't tell us an awful. We love facts as human beings.
Yeah, we do,
and we like all the incessant detail. The Gospels don't tell us the colour of Jesus' hair or his eyes.
No,
it doesn't tell us whether he had a beard or not, or whether he was tall or short. But actually, that's not the message. The message is this is the Son of God being born on earth. Here are people from a foreign land travelled a long way because God's revealed to them, this is the Son of God come to earth in a little baby.
Yeah.
That's who Jesus is. And the Gospels are very focused on the importance of the message and not the detail.
Mm.
And maybe that's the lesson for us as we move forward, is look at the message. What do we need to learn?
Well, I mean, yeah, the real message is contained in that wonderful opening sentence, the prologue of John's Gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word became life and dwelt among us. I think that's the principle of all, or principle before, that God's Son came at that moment, and from that moment on, the world was changed.
Yep.
And people came to pay him homage. In this case, it was these three, whatever they were, wise men, kings, and they brought very important gifts. And you can find all kinds of meanings of what myrrh, gold, frankincense meant, can't you? If you look it up, we've all been there with addresses and sermons on trying to work out and fathom that. But the real key is that Jesus was so special; it was identified that people came, but the first people, as you quite rightly said, weren't the upper classes and the kings and the whatever. The first people that arrived were the you and me, the working people, the people of everyday life. And no wonder those shepherds raced off to tell everybody, because their life had been changed forever, hadn't it?
Yeah, famous at last.
Yeah. So important. So the message of the message of Epiphany isn't the importance of who turns up, but that we're all invited to come to the manger stall to greet and to meet the child Jesus.
And I can say no more to that. We're all invited.
We're all invited, and do come.
And do come. Yeah, and it's it's a huge lesson for us as well, isn't it? Because we all tend to favour, well, what's the polite word? Probably the similar.
Yeah.
As in middle-aged white blokes.
Yeah.
And then the different, it's easy to try and dismiss as, oh, you're not important because you're different. And that's been happening around the world throughout history. You're different, therefore you're not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And we can all see parts around the world at the moment where we could see people treating other people badly because they're different, from a different race, a different colour, a different gender, a different whatever.
Tradition, yeah.
We've even had it within Christianity, haven't we? It's you're Roman Catholic, you're Protestant, you're evangelical, you're liberal, you're conservative, you're whatever.
Whatever, yep.
We treat people as not as good as us because they're different or hold slightly different views. And the message of Epiphany to me is God treats everybody equally. God loves everybody equally. Jesus Christ was born for the salvation of the whole world.
Yep.
The white, brown, pink, blue, black, yellow, whatever colour you like, whatever shape we like. That's who God came for.
The message remains that we're all, everyone, invited to the manger. And that's why we leave our mangers up, isn't it? I don't know about yours, as will stay in most of them, unless I haven't got the message across again this year. But most of them will leave their crib scenes up until Candlemas, and then we'll take them down.
I think most of ours will come down at Epiphany. Maybe I need to run a campaign for next year to keep them up.
That's certainly in Beaminster that day, and a lot of the villages do leave them up as well. Only because I think over the years they got fed up of me moaning at them for taking them down early. But they're there, so come, dear viewer. They're still there. Come and sit in the quiet before the manger and see that you are invited as well to know Jesus for yourself. Chris, thank you. Thank you for another interesting discussion. And I hope Julie gets well soon. And I hope you get your magazine articles on Easter and everything in time.
Well,
At least-
it'll happen.
At least I don't have to do Easter. I can just do Lent over the next couple of days and get them finished. That'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big challenge, is working out what we're going to do for Lent.
It is. But there we are. So, yeah, so all is well and all is good. And hopefully next, we'll see you again, or you'll see us again next week, those who are watching. And you know where to find us, because if you've seen this, of course, as I always say, you know where to find us. Do tell others, encourage others to join in. And as we always say, we're always happy to receive any comments or questions from you, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Yes, and let us know where you're from.
Yeah. If you're watching in outer Weymouth, then let us know. But of course, the old jokes are always the best, Chris, and I'll end with it. When I was growing up as a boy in Smethwick, the question always used to be asked, why wasn't Jesus born in Smethwick? And the answer always was the same. You got to giggle because they couldn't find 3 wise men.
And they still can't.
There we are. We're not in Smethwick, I doubt. But there we are. Good to see you.
We could get arrogant, David, and say, well, obviously this deanery's got 2 wise men because we're here.
Chris, I wouldn't dream of suggesting such a thing. The arrogance can be yours and yours alone. I'm quite happy for that on this occasion, Chris.
No, I'm not taking that on my own.
Chris, I can get myself into enough trouble without you trying to encourage me.
I'll keep trying.
There we are. Yeah, keep trying. Good to see you. Come on now. Bye-bye.